Welcome to the Business and Bud Show. You know it's time. Start thinking like a winner when you get online. Streaming audio and video to get you primed for a future of success, a life you design. Business and Buds is the online show for people who want to learn about creating a thriving business and a thriving network. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business and Buds Show. What's going on, people of the world? Welcome back. It is the Business and Buds Show with Mike Bryant. Oh, it's this way. Mike Bryant, producer Pat, and today we've got Owen, the lawyer, the lawman himself in the house. The myth, the legend, the man that Mike has spoken so highly of is joining us today, taking time out of his, savagery as a lawman to dedicate some time to the show. Welcome, Owen. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's a beautiful thing. Mike, how's it going over there in Mike land?
It's good. I had to drive away from my house because work was being done on it, and inside my home is roaming toddlers all over the place. So I am.
The car is what you get today, folks. Yeah, the car is what you get today from Mike's world. So why don't you guys explain exactly what you guys do together as far as business to the audience and let them know a little bit about how you guys got connected and what you're offering the marketplace together.
So Owen and I, we met through a mutual friend, Rishi, and I needed some work done because we were looking to exit our company. We had a potential buyer, and Owen was the recommendation from Rishi. And over the past year, I mean, we've worked together. I mean, especially the past couple of months, we've worked together really closely. And for Core Dev, which is a sole proprietorship that I own, anything that I touch or do, I call Owen and I say, should I do this? And if I'm doing this, please write up the contract because I want to be in full control. And Owen handles all my legal affairs.
Nice. So Owen, how's that working out for you?
It's working out pretty well. I mean, Michael has his ideas, but he will listen if I tell him it's serious. So he's a pretty ideal client in that sense where, he definitely has a strong sense of what he wants to do, but isn't irrational or rash about pursuing those goals, right? So if I come to him and say, hey, Michael, this is a great idea, do it. He'll say, okay, good, because I'm already doing it. Or if I say, maybe we need to rethink the way that we're approaching this, he'll say, all right, what do we have to do then? So it's a nice mixture of independence on his end, but also when it comes into my realm of expertise, he will sit and listen, which I can't say all my clients do.
Right, and we've talked about that a lot, moving through the first couple episodes of just shooting back and forth on success and obstacles and how to find solutions for people in the marketplace and how to capitalize on those solutions. We were talking a little bit about before we came on here about me being a producer for live shows, and that kind of moved to me doing my own gigs and being a part of my own performances. And now as things have moved on to the internet, I'm still doing all of those things together. Just like today, I'm kind of performing and producing and all that, but it's virtual now. And you were talking about how, your wife is an online tutor and all of this kind of stuff is happening at once. And when you're dealing with people that are creative and innovators and entrepreneurs, you've got to try and be a couple of steps ahead of where the market's going. But you also got to be in control of what you're doing at the same time. So balancing those kinds of things out can be very challenging.
They can be, one of the things that I hate doing, but is part of my job, is saying no.
Right.
Right.
You tell me no every day almost.
Yeah. But and Michael's good at realizing that when I do say no, I'm trying to take care of him as opposed to stopping him from doing something that would be a good endeavor for him to do.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
I mean, I had an idea that I came to Owen with. I brought him to lunch and I was like, hey, I want to do a Bitcoin casino. And he looked into every single thing and was like, you could. I wouldn't. And I was like, okay. And he explained why. And there was a myriad of reasons and costs that were going to be associated with it. And I was like, all right, well, then next. And then I came
Right.
to him the next week with a different idea. And he was like, that's plausible. Let's talk about it. So,
Yeah, I think that having a corner man. I mean, you look at these guys, they go out and they win the championship in anything, whether it's the Super Bowl or it's the World Series or it's the heavyweight champion or the Conor McGregor's. That Conor McGregor's had that guy Owen Roddy in his corner his entire career. I've noticed that people in high levels of success all have trainers and coaches and personal assistants and all these kinds of things. And so that's a transition I had to make from being in a, stage manager and producer position to when I started doing stuff for myself. Well, who am I going to get around that can help me accelerate my results? And so that's why I started targeting the Cardones and the Vaynerchuks and these people, because I knew they were going to give me the truth. Mm-hmm. Rather than just tell me I'm great or be yes men. They were going to tell me the truth. Well, yeah, you're great over here, but you got to work on this, and this, or it's unsustainable. You got to really accept you're great in these areas. You got to fill in those dark spots, or it's unsustainable. And unsustainable, I mean, we're talking business here at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So that means there's revenue involved, there's risk involved. And so, something like a Bitcoin casino, it sounds cool. I remember when you posted that on your stories too. I want to do a casino. I didn't know it was a Bitcoin casino. Yeah. That's, you might want to listen to Owen on that one. That might be a little bit, but as time moves forward, maybe this is what we were talking about too. 5 years from now, that might be this new revolution of the new thing, but time hasn't really caught up to that idea yet.
Yeah, and with things like the law tends to react to society rather than push society. So, it's one of those things to, always keep in mind. If the law's not there yet, doesn't mean it's not going to get there. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to do it in 5-10 years or something like that. So it can be very frustrating because, I mean, the legal system in general moves slow and laws change very slowly. Yeah. But they do.
Right. Yeah, well, absolutely. That's a good perspective too. And with anything, like we were saying in entrepreneurship, you want to be ahead of the curve. Like right. I was saying, I was making funny tunes about like entrepreneurs with my guitar a couple of years ago. And people were like, dude, you just look like such a goofball on Instagram. Like, why would Grant Cardone ever like share that? Well, 2 days later, when it was on his Instagram page, they're like, that's so awesome. He shared that. So it's like, it's interesting how people's perspective changes. Yeah. Once it works, everybody loves it.
Yep.
But getting to that point to making something connect or making something work, there's always going to be this kind of hands up in the air, shoulder shrug moment where I don't know if this is going to go or not. And so, I mean, I think that idea, just as an example, that's a genius idea. But it's kind of like your friend here, Owen, said, it's like, I don't know if the law is going to support that. And you're kind of, you were kind of in a gray space. I was going to say that you're kind of in a gray space with the CBD thing. Why don't you guys touch on that a little bit?
I mean, that alone, like banking laws for that are brutal. And that's one of the things that I was talking about. Like, I'm still learning lessons every day. And like that one was a Harvard education lesson on contracts, quite literally. I mean, it was, I don't remember the exact figure that we lost because I just started laughing on the phone like a psychopath. And and
what are you supposed to do at that point? You're either going to break something or laugh.
Yeah. So I just laughed about it. And the reality is, like, we lost, I don't know, what was it, like 200K almost?
Just about.
Yeah. Like, just gone, vanished. And I paid taxes on that money last year, like everything just gone. So it's like, okay, that was a steep one to learn from, and which is why now literally any single thing that I do, Owen is the first person and does all the contracts, because I don't even want to receive a contract from another person unless we wrote it.
So outside perspective, so was Owen not a part of that negotiation when it happened? So
No.
do you think if he would have been, that mistake maybe could have been avoided?
Potentially, but I think that we would have been made more aware of the confines of the contract than we were, because at that time we were just applying for merchant processing everywhere just to get it, and
Right.
we needed to have it, so it was a stepping stone to the future, no matter what.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that contract, it was either you take it or you leave it with that particular processor. So, I couldn't have rewritten it or anything like that. But they would have been much better apprised of what they were actually walking into and signing up for, right? And it might have been something where they looked at it and they said, "Nah, maybe not."
Correct. At least I would have been made aware of the fact that, like, hey, there's a chance that if you guys stop running or you guys do whatever, if you cut ties or you void this contract in any way, shape, or form, they're going to be able to hold the reserves that they were taking for the high risk processing.
Yeah.
That's always a fun one there. So, so with the gray space, but moving forward, you guys have kind of figured a lot of things out, and you're projecting some pretty awesome returns for this company. And so why don't we kind of look at how you've maybe taken some hits, but you've also kind of broken through some barriers, and you're looking at some pretty nice verticals here.
Oh, I mean, on our side, like, as far as actual progression in different verticals that we're going into with CBD, we are trying to remove ourselves from as much paid traffic from these vendors, because we don't have control over that as much. I mean, it's someone could put a pre-sale page, which we had to deal with earlier. I mean, someone put a pre-sale page of Dr. Phil and stuff like that, and we had no knowledge of that, so we immediately had to rectify that sort of matter. So we're pivoting to our own internal traffic and SEO, which is why, we took on that SEO company.
Right. So there's a lot of pieces to this. And for people that are watching that want to understand, the nuts and bolts here. So you've got to, since you're selling the CBD product in all 50 states, correct? Mm-hmm. So there's different laws.
Depending upon.
That was what I was going to ask. So so maybe certain states don't allow it. Let's say you're trying to sell it in all 50 states. How about that? Because again, I'm trying to understand it too.
It's on the customer, right? Am I correct to understand that, Owen? Like,
that's what I was going to ask. Who's legally? How does that work when you're trying to sell something? Some guy just comes on and just orders something. How does that all work legally?
So, I mean, some of it is, it comes down to terms and conditions on the website and things like that. Basically saying, if it's illegal for you to purchase this where you are, you assume responsibility for that.
Got it.
Right?
That was my question. It's hard to phrase that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because what I was saying was people from all 50 states have access to the website and the order forms, and they're probably ordering. And like I was telling him, I have a friend, his name's Tim Bratz. He runs a commercial real estate company, and he has a lawyer, Fadi, who we were talking about the other day, who shows up at all his live events, and they do this panel, and Fadi answers all these kinds of legal questions. They've got legal representatives in all the different states that they do all these different cash flowing properties in, because the codes are different, the compliance is different, the property management laws are all different. All of those things have to be abided by for them to operate in those markets.
Well, I just got sued in Texas. Too.
Oh, great.
That was ridiculous.
I just got sued in Texas. When was it? Like a couple weeks ago, right?
For what?
So one of the affiliates.
He's just laughing.
It's so stupid. So one of the affiliates sent a text message with my company links to a person that was saying that we didn't have authorization to text them and that we breached TCPA compliance laws.
Oh,
I'll let Owen get into it, but it was just like so fucking ludicrous that this happened, and also we didn't send the text message. So like I still had to pay for it though. That's part of the
So what is
that, like,
TCPA? Let's start off with that.
So that's the law that basically says I want to be on the do not call list, right?
Got it.
So do not call, do not text, that kind of thing, unless you invite, specific people to contact you.
Right.
Now, this person in 2018 signed up for the do not call list. He received 2 text messages, I think.
Yep.
From somebody, including links from Michael's company, and said, because I'm on the do not call list, I'm allowed to collect $1,500 per text.
3,000.
3,000 per text.
Yep. Savage.
And I mean, it was pretty clear to me that this guy is pretty practiced at this, and he goes fishing for these kind of things and goes after companies and hopes that they'll just sort of pay up to make a nuisance go away, right? So
he's right.
Yeah, and I mean that happens.
All you entrepreneurs out there listening, you just found your new niche.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told Michael when this happened, one of the very first cases I had when I went into private practice was a federal class action where there's this lawyer in and around Pittsburgh who goes seeking out clients with specific disabilities, right? There's a federal law that says on every ATM, you have to post, you know how you go, if you're out of network, you have to accept the like $375 fee or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
They have to post that in 2 different places, both on screen on the ATM and also in Braille and various other things, right? So they will go and search out every ATM in the area and find one that doesn't meet the stricture of that, right? Then they will find a plaintiff with, poor eyesight, so the Braille kicks in. They will then file a class action lawsuit on behalf of everybody, and then basically go to the bank and say, we'll go away for $45,000.
That is just so savage.
And this is why I think whenever you get to a certain point, like as an entrepreneur and stuff like that, and you've made it through all these hurdles, and you see these the actual people like Andy Frisella who has $20 million in cars and that sort of stuff, they have it because it's a stress relief for them. They buy it because they buy freedom. They want to get into something and forget about all of the fucking problems that are going on. Because even for me, I'm not anywhere near any of those entrepreneurs. The problems that I don't have to deal with because I have Owen. Like Owen's now, I put all my problems off on him, or on the developer to handle that sort of stuff. But they're still in the back of my head churning all day long. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what else am I supposed to do? I'm not a lawyer. Like, I can barely read a contract. I mean, I can, but like, I can't read it with the intelligence and understanding and be able to discern the information the same way that he can and break it back down to me in a way that I understand it. And that's
contracts are notorious for being worded in a way that are only decipherable by lawyers.
To break down that information and relay it back to me in a way that like my knucklehead brain can understand it.
Your phone reception is hurting me, but it'll come back in. But I get what you're saying. Like I said, contracts are notorious for being written a certain way to be communicated in a certain way to somebody that uses that communication style.
Yeah.
Like my dad is an accountant. So my dad knows how to read all these types of forms and Schedule C's and all this kind of stuff and deduction types and all this kind of stuff with this account compared to this account and to give you this write-off and capital gains taxes and all this stuff. My dad understands all of that. I'm just like, well, this is how much money I made. What do I do with everything else? So I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Having a corner man or having a team of people that can help you decipher certain types of codes and liabilities and stuff related to your success and your numbers, you know, when you get to a certain level, that's a necessity.
Well, I mean, I see one of the big mistakes that new startup companies make is wanting to do everything on their own. That they want to operate on a shoestring budget and just sort of pretend that they know what they're doing, right?
Right.
That can get you somewhere. But at some point, you know, the very best business people are the ones that recognize they don't know everything, that they do need help. Not necessarily because, excuse me, they couldn't learn it, but that's not the best way to spend their time.
Right. And speed becomes a factor too. Exactly. How fast are you moving? Like we were talking about, you got this idea, you want to be ahead, you want it to be successful. Well, there's a time factor of how can I implement this as quick as possible and turn it into revenue and I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen Damon John say the best people in business are the ones who are able to take the idea and turn it into revenue the fastest.
Well, right. You know, and you know, startups are so concerned with the revenue stream and their bottom line that they view, you know, hiring an accountant or an attorney or, you know, the whole bevy of people who are able to make things move smoothly so you can actually do your work. They view that as expense rather than investment.
Right.
And, you know, if you really want to grow in factors as opposed to linearly, you need to get those people in who are going to take care of all those, you know, sort of accessory items so that you can be focused on what's next. Where do you want to go? What's the plan for getting there?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's got to be a focus on being an executioner at some point at what you're great at. If you're an innovator type, then you've got to get people around you that can help you be that better. It's just like we talked about with I always use those examples because things like UFC or any of that, those are one-on-one sports.
Right.
So like your job is to go in and win. Every other thing that you have to deal with, nutrition or diet or this or that or supplements, you got to figure out a way to automate all of that so you're using it to win.
Yeah.
Writing the diet, you got to get all that handled. The best guys aren't sitting around, you know, on a Sunday night handling all of that stuff. They've got that prepared for them.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, the bigger you get, specialization is your friend, right? If you try to do everything on your own, you're not doing any single one thing very well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Because now you're splitting up all your focus into 10 different things when if you could take one to 100% instead of operating at 15% on all these other things, you're limiting your ability to blow through the roof. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You know, and to use the example that we were talking about earlier with Michael, you know, he could sit and learn how to read a contract, right? And to really parse through it in a way that, you know, would take me 5 minutes to do, right?
Right.
But he could instead just pay me for those 5 minutes and go off and do his other thing, you know, instead of spending, you know, 5 hours on his own trying to figure out what that contract says.
And then he's still going to have a question anyway.
That's exactly right. You know, and I mean, contracts are complicated for a reason. And it's not just that, you know, lawyers like to be needed and paid. There's an aspect of that, but they're complicated because every word in those contracts, in fact, has a legal significance to them, right?
Right.
And some of that is not controllable because it's you're meeting statutes, or various other things that require that language.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie to you, it's boring as shit.
Right. Well, this is a prime example of the Mike Bryant we know and love. I love this because, dude, the guy's on the move. He's got toddlers at home. He's trying to run a business, but he's dedicated. He wants to get in the time to get the show recorded. It's beautiful, but this is so perfect on why you have to have other people processing certain parts when you get to be at a certain level of success, because it's just like,
I have a question law-wise.
Let's go.
Driving right now, me recording this podcast, I may need you to get me out of a ticket. That's all I'm saying. But I think honestly, like, going back to what you just said, Pat, like, the biggest thing in any area that I know of a successful person at all is just showing up. Even if you don't want to, even if it's not convenient, even if it's not easy, like, just showing up and doing the work that's required is the simplest way to get to where you want to be. I failed at doing that in college, but I do really, really well at doing it in business because I care about it. And I do it really, really well for my sons and my wife because I care about those things. So, like, those are literally the three things that I care about most in this whole world: are building businesses, building relationships, and showing up and doing the work. And as long as you do that, you're going to get 1% better or 2% better every day. And then, like, you look back 4 years ago and you're like, holy shit, like, I was kind of like lazy back then. Knowing what your new capacity is for learning and for, networking and doing everything that you can.
Right. Yeah. And I mean,
I just passed the cop, by the way. I just passed the cop.
Hopefully he was looking the other way. I've always said, progress over perfection too. Like, I mean, we could sit around and try and make these first 4 or 5 episodes as perfect as possible. But how much fun are those going to be to watch anyway? I mean, we got to bang through stuff, get through stuff out. This might not be the only time you join us on a call. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's just like having fun and making progress. You got to find a way to make it fun. Or I think that if you sit around and think, I see a lot of thinkers out there that I meet a lot of people at conferences that read all the books, go to all the conferences, sign up for all the masterminds. And years later, it's like, I don't see progress sometimes. And I think they're focusing so hard on being perfect that they're not making progress. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I think perfection kills anything. I mean, like, Owen will probably be the first to tell you, I'm a run and gunner. That's just like if I don't have something ready, like, I'm just there to figure it out. Like, it's all problem solving. So, like, I don't. That's actually why, like, Owen is so important, is because, like, I don't think sometimes, and I'm like, well, this is going to work. And then I dump money into it. And then Owen's like, I could have saved you a lot of money on that. And I'm like, fuck.
But in the end, you're able to analyze it and make progress in other areas. So taking action, like I was saying, I mean, there's a lot of the mindset stuff is important, and thinking about what's possible and outlining a plan and executing the plan in any profession is important. But I mean, the action and the amount of action and the amount of desire you have to be successful is going to come into play. And that's what's going to separate the high level guys from the mediocre guys.
The plan isn't as important as most people think.
Right.
The most important thing, I mean, those guys that you were talking about who sign up for all the master classes, who read all the books, that's all well and good, but they're dealing entirely in theory. Right? Until those theories butt up against actual real world things, you don't even know what that means, right? You have a bunch of sayings, and platitudes that you can go and impress people with, but you don't know what you're talking about really.
Right.
And so the plan really can come later. You need to start doing.
I totally agree.
I'm by no means, and I'm sure if you've watched any of the other episodes on this, you know that I am not the most articulate person in the world. I speak from like my heart to my brain, and it just like comes out like fucking word vomit, and that gets me in trouble a lot of times too. I mean, like Owen and I have gone back and forth over the past week on this one particular contract that a gentleman signed for SEO. And my heart tells me, like, if the situation that he's telling us is true, then I should give him a break on the contract a little bit. But if it's a lie, which we both think that it is, then I mean,
I think the guy's full of shit too, by the way. I'm
gonna let Owen.
I know what he's talking about.
I'm gonna let Owen steamroll this dude and bring his ass to Pittsburgh, and we're gonna fight him here. And there's no way, in my opinion, that we don't win the contract. And I'm sure Owen is like, nah, I wrote that bitch. I know that we're going to take that home the W. So,
right.
That's why I feel better. I lost 200 one day, but I know that I made back 110 the next.
That's part of the game.
And it's also, one of those moments where you realize that when you write the contract, you're in a much better place. The more in control of the terms and the way that it works, the better off you are. So, it can be very tempting sometimes for business people to be like, sure, I'll sign the contract. Yeah, I want that business. You really have to know what you're placing yourself responsible.
I love that you brought that up because, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, I come from the music business, and I cannot tell you how many people I know that signed bad deals that sold millions and millions and millions of records.
Yep.
But like 3-4 years later, when another record wasn't doing as well, they were dropped and have nothing to show for what they did.
Yep.
And everybody forgets about you super quick. Like you might have been the big thing there for a year or two, but I mean, you get replaced. Like it's like gears on I don't know if you're a mechanic, it's like gears on a car, a e-brake cable or something. I mean, these are things, they're so easily replaced by these companies that it's just like, dude, sad. And a lot of those people, I know some of them, they aren't even playing music anymore. They're bartending at the bowling alley. And it's kind of sad because it's like, man, how? Well, it was a bad deal. But like you said too, they needed that deal or no one would have found out about him anyway. Right. So it was like a catch-22.
Well, here's the difference in this
scenario.
Know
what I'm saying? I know you hate to hear that, Owen, but it is true that it's like you either sign it or no one ever hears about who you are.
Sure, but after that also comes, what did you do with the money when you were thriving, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so many people, and it's not just artists, it's in every walk of business, right? When you're high, you do stupid things with money, right? If you don't preserve, that, in some senses, and this will sound harsh, you get what you deserve, right? Yep. You cannot count on, every song you write being a top 100 hit. It's
no way.
Well, I mean, if you're Drake,
and again, that's with anything. I love that. Well, Drake, right. But I mean, the great example. So like the Drakes or the Puff Daddies, the Drakes or the Puff Daddies or the 50 Cents or the even now Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre made way more money on headphones than he ever did on music.
Yep.
Puff Daddy made way more money on, I think it's Ciroc vodka than he ever did on Bad Boy Records or whatever they were called.
I mean, the guys who really make a lot of money in music don't make the money necessarily from music. They leverage the money they make in music and invest it into something else, right?
Yeah, Justin Timberlake's really good at that. He's now making soundtracks for like Trolls movies. My kid thinks that like Justin Timberlake and Trollex and the Techno Trolls wrote old Daft Punk songs that have been out for 25 years.
Well,
and I just kind of let it go. But it's so funny that is true. It's so funny to me that I turn that on in my office and she dances around. She's like, it's Trollex. Well, what did they do? They found a way to use something that worked and now market that to a younger audience in an animated, fun way that captures their attention and to kind of reignite the spark behind something that already works anyway.
Right.
That's a smart business play.
It is. It is.
And then legally, all they have to do is pay Daft Punk for the rights and they can call it whatever they want. So in legal world, it's like those guys still get paid.
Yeah. I mean, Daft Punk is perfectly happy to have that happen. You know,
Absolutely.
And those kids who hear Daft Punk, you know, as toddlers grow up and they figure out who Daft Punk is and they start buying Daft Punk records. So, I mean,
10 years from
pretty
now.
easy. Right. Exactly.
Unbelievable, dude. I love that. So that was kind of funny too. But what a smart way for, JT, who's now older, who is not the young pop sensation anymore. And the guy's got tons of talent, by the way.
He does.
But how am I going to reignite myself in a new generation and have that generation grow up again with me as a pop icon? Dude, that's so smart. And he's got a whole team of designers and creatives and beat makers and all these people, video and movie producers that are able to kind of make that all work because they can't do it without him either.
Right.
Right. So super smart. How you doing there, Mike?
Getting connected back up here. I came home and it was like trying to connect to the Wi-Fi, and then
This is what makes Business and Buds exciting. Is this raw format that we've got going here? So moving into the final pieces here, what do you guys see yourselves thriving at moving forward? You've done a lot of cool stuff. You've got the SEO thing that you're now integrating. We're gonna have a private community for this that we're gonna open up to people that want to be a part of like monthly calls and all this kind of stuff to help them, one-on-one, just like we're doing here. People can log in with their phones and stuff, and also with the CBD. But there's a lot of moves being made here in Mike world, and I know that Owen, you're going to be helping him kind of finalize how to make this all work and operate correctly. Yeah. Where do you guys connect all this, and where do you see this all going, 3 to 5 years from now? Because the CBD companies had an exponential growth, but we know that's not the final thing. There's always more. So what does that look like? That like map for you guys here moving forward?
Well, I can let Owen go first if you'd like, and then I can chime in. Or I can start on what I think it will be, and then Owen can tell me how he's going to tell me no.
Yeah, why don't you fire and Owen can Owen can correct you when you're out of line.
Michael's the bowler. I'm just the thing you put in the bumper lanes just to make sure.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mike.
So that's actually a great analogy.
It is.
So what I see happening, we are working on building out an Amazon store-like beta right now, and that should be launching in the next 6 months, I would say. One of the main things that we're going to have to try and really figure out on what we're going to do is how do we keep the supply chain intact? How do we find the right bank that's going to allow processing for not just my brand, but take on the liability of hopefully hundreds of other brands? And how do we strategically find those partnerships? Because I think that once we start with the Amazon-esque store, we will start buying up smaller entities and smaller brands and just bringing them in-house. And that's the plan for me. And then the other plan is I want to start buying other sorts of companies, which Owen and I have talked about briefly, and finding companies that have a larger retail presence, and then bringing them to a more e-commerce company and
We talked about Kai Lopez and Pier 1 the other day on an episode.
Yeah, I brought that up to Owen, and it's kind of what gave me the idea for it, and I just write it down in my phone journal, whatever the fuck you'd want to call it. I write down my notes every day, and that's kind of the only way that I can keep track of things. But surprisingly, for as much as I smoke and stuff like that, I stay on top of things pretty well. I mean, I'm constantly contacting people to make sure that, you know, things are moving in the right way. I think communication is a huge factor in us moving forward and growing to the next level, and then figuring out how we can translate that communication style that I have through the rest of our company culture.
Yeah, that's great. And like, even with us, man, our communication's been on point, and that's why it's been so much fun recording these and making, you know, so many. We're trying to get tons of episodes together for the launch compared to what we originally discussed, because we're making time for it, and the communication's been there, and we're blocking out what we want to do and who we can bring on. Like I said, we maybe Owen comes on in some of those group calls, and we're able to kind of discuss with the group what he can offer people as far as legal stuff for their businesses. I mean, there's so many avenues here with this virtual communication that you don't even need to leave your house to communicate and grow and build. And it's amazing that that's where it's all gone with this digital stuff. And it's beautiful because like you said, why have to drive and go to the skyscraper and pay all that rent when you could literally spend the difference building an addition on your home?
Well, you could do that, or I mean, you could reinvest it back into your companies and, you know, make 10, 20, 30, 50 times that amount of money over the next 2-3 years. I mean, compounding. The thing that I've learned recently is compound interest is your friend.
It's a magical thing.
And the sooner that clicks in your brain, the better off you become financially, the better off you become mentally, because like you're not worrying about what's like in your checking or in your savings. You know that you have money out there that's making you money while you sleep. And that's the most attractive thing to me about e-com is like I go to bed and I wake up and there's been shoppers on my site all night long and I slept like a baby. Like that's the best. The thing that I don't sleep like a baby about is like whenever I have to worry about one affiliate sending out a text to a list, and then maybe that list has 20,000 names on it, and then now I owe, you know, a class action lawsuit for like. So trying to get around that sort of stuff is not easy to sleep with at night sometimes.
Well, and so that's funny. So Owen, legally, when you look at the structure that's going to have to be behind, let's just talk about the Amazon marketplace for CBD at first. What does that look like legally?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of shit.
It is a pretty massive, you know, undertaking just to make sure that, you know, you're not breaking certain FCC rules, you know, and things like that.
There's a lot of compliance involved with that, especially when you take on multiple different brands and multiple different companies. Now you've got to make sure that their compliance is right to put them onto your marketplace.
So the thing that's really important for that kind of thing, getting your own website and your own brand, you know, up to speed is not super hard. Right. It's a matter of knowing what it is that you have to disclaim, what things you can't disclaim, you know, how to set things up like that. For the marketplace, the really important thing is going to be the contract that you have with the folks who are selling on your marketplace. Right. What kind of responsibility they assume, what kind of responsibility the marketplace is going to assume. Now,
one major problem that I foresee is you have all these companies. Let's say that we open it up, like once we beta test 10 companies, right? And we open up the floodgates for applications. You have all these people still that are making, you know, for lack of a better term, bathtub CBD. They're not in an FDA registered lab. They're not, They're selling, full
Bathtub
spectrum.
CBD.
They're selling. Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, like we
Yeah,
run
there was an
out
old
of,
Fish song. There's an old Fish song called Bathtub Gin, and it's all about dumping all these chemicals in the bathtub, and I guess they
Yeah.
drank it.
Yeah. So they used to do that with like old speakeasies. So, but that's like one of the things that we have to really try and work on is like, how do we ensure compliance? Like, do we have to test every single batch that comes into our facility for distribution? Maybe. And if that is the case, is there a fee that's associated with that for the person that's coming on board? Also, if we have all the traffic, what is that worth to other CBD companies? Should we charge a fee for you to even be able to launch and have the access to come on board? Because at the end of the day, I think our total SEO agreement that I agreed to invest was what, 3 million?
I believe so. Yeah.
So I agreed to put up 3 mil for SEO. So that sort of money in traffic is absolutely astronomical. And there's no one else that I know of right now that's willing to put in that amount of capital to drive their SEO and build their platform out, the way that we want to.
Yeah, I mean that's a large investment, and it's what we're talking about here is how big do you really want to go, and how far are you willing to go after you've taken certain risks, because you're going to take certain hits along the way. In addition to that risk, it's the compound factor of all that. Well, once you break through and you get to the other side and you start to see those results, it's like, oh man, wow, this is unbelievable. And what's next? We were talking about this on the last episode of the show where, Elon Musk put in all this money and made PayPal and then did some Tesla stuff and literally took all the cash and invested it into the space thing. And people told him he was nuts. He had to borrow money for rent. And I've seen the meme of what the exact numbers were for that. It was a shitload of money.
Yeah.
But dude, now it's like, everyone's like, oh, Elon's such an innovator and this and that and the other thing, when like Neil Armstrong was talking shit like 3 years ago.
One thing is for certain, I will either be broke or rich, but there will be no in between for me. I can't do it. Like, I'm either going to go all in every time, and that's probably a problem, I think, as well. But Owen can attest to this. Like, if I'm going in, for lack of a better term, I'm going balls deep. That's how I'm going every time. And there is no pulling back for me once I've started something. It's like I will burn it until it goes to the ground.
Well, that's a good thing in a lot of ways. Owen, how do you think that you can help Mike make sure he wins in the future?
We've had some conversations about managed risk.
Yeah.
It's the thing that's important is if you go all in, it's not just a random, okay, this looks cool, right?
Right.
It's going to be, I think that this has a really good shot, right? So you take some of the chance and the randomness out of it by choosing what it is that you go all in for, right?
No doubt.
So I think that's really one of the critical things. You don't go all in on, I think I'm going to make a bunch of money on a marketplace for kittens, right? That's just dumb.
It really is dumb.
You pick your battles, right? And if you're really good at choosing the specific things that you go all in on, you raise the probability of winning on those. Right.
Oh, for sure. And you have steered me away from some terrible, terrible decisions. The Bitcoin casino is just one of many examples. I come up with new ideas for things all the time. Like once I get one business situated and in a flow, I'm trying to immediately find the next thing that we can build another revenue stream from. Because at the end of the day, the feds could change all the rules on CBD, and all the money that I put in there and that we invest and all the time that we put in could be for naught. And it could put me in jail. Who knows? Like, it really could. But that's a risk that I'm willing to take because the upside potential to that is so massive.
Yeah,
Well,
and I want to piggyback on something that you said earlier, taking notes all the time, right?
Yep.
You talked about communication, and being communicative with other people. It's also absolutely critical to be communicative with yourself, right? I basically have a rule. If I don't write it down, I didn't think it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Unless there's a record, it just goes off into the ether, right? Write down every important thought that you have because you're not going to remember it, and Michael's really good about doing that.
Yeah, it's important. And I think that I have a friend, Jonathan, he's a big time accountant and stuff, does a lot of stuff with me as well with podcasting. He says, if you, to accomplish anything, you must write down something.
Mm-hmm.
That's his big quote. His accountability for the morning. He's a big journaler in the morning and at night, writing down your goals. What does my accounting look like as an accountant?
Mm-hmm.
What does my numbers look like? If you're not looking at your numbers, you're not hitting your numbers. If you're not accountable for your numbers in your caloric intake, then you're not losing weight. Like, these are all different things that are interconnected. So I think that's very true.
Speaking of numbers, Owen, I have a referral for you. His name is Andrew Van Dyke, and he'll be calling you shortly.
All right.
Andy Van Slyke? I'm just kidding.
I used to live on the street from Andy Van Slyke, actually.
You remember him? Speaking of Pittsburgh, that guy was good.
That bastard went to Atlanta and beat us in the playoffs.
Oh, man. Sore subject. Leave it to me. Leave it to me.
Actually, a really nice guy, though.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. He was super successful. Yeah. So closing out, I think this has been super fun, by the way. And Mike, I did want to say, because you cut out earlier and we were kind of talking about this and laughing about this, and then you kind of popped back in, you might have missed this, but the Bitcoin casino thing, we were kind of laughing about how, even with the custom song thing or the custom intros for your show or whatever that I was kind of marketing 4 or 5 years ago, people were like, well, that's crazy. Now everybody's launching shows and everybody's getting on YouTube and everybody's getting online. Not so crazy anymore. We were kind of laughing about how sometimes the market has to adapt to the idea. And he was even saying, even in the world of like the laws, well, the laws react to where the marketplace goes. I'm saying that while it might not be the right time now,
we're going for it, Owen.
No.
You could go for it in the future.
Not yet.
Not right now, but in the future, that could be a big thing. You never really know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You never know.
The easiest part of that would be the tech, to be totally honest. The hardest part would be figuring out all the international law. And then because like we would probably have to have our customers use a VPN from like a certain country to use it. So now you have to educate your customers. The biggest problem is education, I think. But you have to educate your customers on how to use a VPN. You have to educate them on what Bitcoin is and how it works and how taxes work on it, essentially. Well, actually, that's not our problem to educate them on that part of it. But
since you're such a nice guy, you would.
Maybe.
And because you don't want to get fucked, you would.
Owen would probably make me, yes. But in my opinion, like, I'm not like I don't really like taxes at all. But like that's just
who does?
That's a whole different subject. So, I'm the dude that waits until the last day to pay. Because
everybody does.
I just want to keep on to that money as long as I possibly can.
That's like in that Drake song. Speaking of Drake, he has a song that says something about that. Where I don't even remember what the line is anymore, but it was funny.
I have a buddy who literally waits until they put a lien on his house until he pays his tax bill because that's how much he hates it.
Well, that's a hard ball to play there.
Yeah, but, I'm not recommending this. I'm sure Owen.
No, we've already stated. I already stated last time. Owen would be proud that Mike's advice should not be taken as financial advice. We are not liable for anything you choose to do with your money or investing. That is your own risk, and you are liable for the risks you take based on the advice of the Business and Bud Show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good call.
But anyway, yeah, closing out. I think this has been so much fun, you guys, and looks like things are going really well. And Well, what do you guys see for the people out there that maybe are interested in getting started with something? What would your advice be to those people?
Okay.
First steppers, not the people that are ready to put $3 million into an SEO company. What about the guy that's like, man, I got $300 to throw down to get better?
You just have to start doing something, like whether that's buying books, or it is paying $300 to get on the phone with somebody who has been where you want to be and buy their time, and then just try and figure out what it is that you want to do. Like, it's like I've tested a bunch of different things. I did car sales, I did real estate, I did commercial real estate, bought an electronics company, sold all the shit from it, like a bunch of different things that we've done, and then now into CBD, and then now into consulting, and then this podcast. Like, you just have to constantly trying to evolve and adapt once you've layered one thing that you can get money from. Like, once you've figured out one skill set that you have that you're really good at, whether it's connecting people and making money off of referrals, or whether it is whatever, you need some form of passive income that's coming into you every day. Like, I want to get a deposit in my bank account almost every single day. So, like, that's the goal for me, is I try to get money coming in every day, so that way I'm not worrying about cash flow.
Yeah, that's great. That's a beautiful thing. Well, Owen, it's been wonderful, my friend. Thank you for coming on, shooting the shit with us. It was a great time. Thanks for keeping Mike in line. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the show. And as always, we love you. We'll see you next time.